Hello, friends. Good morning and welcome back to Love Wrestling. There aren't many better ways to start a day than interviewing one of professional wrestling's finest, and I've got that privilege this morning. KiLynn King, the motherfucking king, joining me. I am so excited to have you on here with a lot of great stuff coming up, obviously, with the NWA in the next couple of weeks, but let's talk about that later. Good morning. How are you doing? Thanks for joining me.
Good morning. I'm good. I've got my first cup of coffee in my system, so I'm ready to go. Let's do
See, I'm
this.
about like three deep, so we'll make sure
Ooh,
that this is the
okay.
last cup of coffee. But it's 8 a.m. in Edmonton, Alberta. How am I going to start a day otherwise? I'm psyched to have you on, KiLynn. It's a great time for not only yourself but the NWA. Hard times in New Orleans coming up in just over 2 weeks' time. Of course, not your first kick at the cat, not only with the NWA but at the Burke itself. So, how are you feeling heading into what is really the NWA's biggest event of the year?
I'm very, very excited. Earlier this year, I stated that my singles match with Kamille at Always Ready was probably one of the biggest matches of my career. Um, because I was, for the first time in my career, I wasn't just fighting for a title, I was fighting for the NWA World Women's Championship. I've never been a world champion. So I went into that match like with such immense like excitement and a little bit of pressure, but in a good way. And I didn't think I could top that this year. And then a few months later, I not only do I have another chance at the Burke, but at one of the biggest pay-per-views probably of the whole year, one of the last pay-per-views of the year. So I'm really excited to not only be on to continue to work for NWA, to continue to be on their pay-per-views, but to also still be in the title picture, to have people who have that faith in me, who want to see me do good things in the NWA. So to Bubba and to Billy Corgan and to everybody who's pushing me there, thank you. I'm very excited. Not crazy about the fact that it turned into a triple threat because I was excited to have my round two with Kamille, but I am still very honored and excited to be a part of this pay per view and to be having another opportunity at the Burke because if you're in the NWA Women's Division, that's the goal. You want to be the champ. So
And I was going to ask, obviously, you're a multi-time champion. It's got to be an honor anytime you are a champ. But going after the Burke specifically, how cool is that for you that you chose to really bet on yourself a few months ago and it's really starting to pay off, at least from an outsider's perspective?
yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, no matter what journey you go down, at some point you got to make some decisions that aren't necessarily bad decisions, they're just scary decisions. And you're not quite sure what the result's going to be, but you have to have that faith and just do it. And that's what I did earlier this year. I just had faith and I started putting myself out there full time on the independents. And once people realized that I was available on the independents again, I started getting some crazy, awesome opportunities. Promotions were bringing me in. I was winning titles here and there. And then before I knew it, I found myself in the NWA. And when you go from one company to another, you're not quite sure what your standing in the next company is going to be. Sometimes you have that mindset like, oh, starting from scratch, new roster, new company, new division. So I wasn't 100% sure what to expect when I showed up in the NWA. You know, start at the bottom, work to the top. That's where my head was at. So the fact that I found myself in the title picture so soon and continuing to be in the title picture throughout the rest of the year, continuing that story with Kamille and really finding myself being elevated at NWA, it wasn't something I was expecting. But again, it's the expression, having faith in yourself and taking that leap. And I took that leap, and the universe is rewarding me for it. So I'm very, very excited, and I'm very honored because when there's a title like the Burke, not everybody's considered for it. So if you are considered for it, if you are pushed to go after that title, it's not a small thing. And I'm very, very excited and very proud and honored to be a part of that picture.
Now we mentioned the triple threat earlier, and we'll get to Chelsea Green. Don't worry there. But obviously, you've been in the ring with Kamille before. You've challenged her specifically, even for the Burke prior, and maybe not the most ideal win-loss record as far as that goes yet. So again, triple threat aside, but how do you think that this one's going to be approached differently, or how are you going into this maybe with a different mindset or a different strategy than you previously have before?
Well, the fun thing about my career is early on, I always found myself in multi-man matches. It was one of those things where I would just go to shows, whether I was booked or not, and I would show up and If they could use me, great. And so because of that, I found myself in a lot of multi-man matches. So over the last 4+ years, I have kind of become a little bit of a creative mind when it comes, especially triple threats. When it comes to triple threats, I'm very innovative and I'm very aggressive in those kinds of matches because I love using people's bodies against each other. But with that said, I think it's safe to say that going into this match, Kamille and I are both a little irritated about the situation. We're both a little frustrated because we've been spending the last couple of weeks with one expectation, and now because of some politics and some words said, somebody else has found their way into our match. So I think it's safe to say that despite the fact that Kamille and I are going to be fighting against each other, there's a very strong possibility we're also going to be there helping each other with the Chelsea situation. So
The Dr. Evil air quotes. I love it. Now you alluded to it a
yeah.
little bit there, but Chelsea Green specifically, again, someone that you've been in the ring with before, been in the ring with in triple threat situations before. So how do you maybe plan on neutralizing, taking out, whatever phrase you want to use on that end of things? So as you've put it, get down to business between you and Kamille.
How do I plan on handling Kamille once we beat
Yeah.
the crap out of Chelsea? Oh, okay. um, I've alluded to it in other interviews where it's an interesting dynamic with Kamille because her and I both stem from the same stomping grounds. We both have been trained by the same minds in this business. So it's one of those situations where we think a lot alike, but at the same time, we've gone off on different journeys and adapted different ways. The thing about Kamille that I've been very aware of is every single time she steps in the ring to defend her title, she always does something people don't expect of her, which is something I very much admire because that's what I always strive to do. I am 6 foot, I'm 170 pounds, and a lot of the times people expect me to come in the ring and just pick girls up and slam them, pick girls up and slam them. But I pride myself on being a technical wrestler. I pride myself on being a very strong striker. I love kicking people in the face. So yeah, so I think her and I both have that advantage towards each other because even though we stem from the same place, we both have evolved very, very different ways, and we both have a constant need to constantly be keeping people on their toes. So while there are going to be some things that we're prepared for and familiar with, I do think that her and I are both going to surprise each other with a couple tricks up our sleeves, and that's great because that keeps things interesting and that helps us become smarter fighters. And I'm excited to see how that plays out.
And I think that is one of the coolest things, again, in the parallels between yourself and Kamille, is you guys did train with the same individuals. They are individuals that have gone out, reinvented themselves, done maybe some surprising things or unexpected things throughout their career. So does that come from the training? Does that come from maybe yourselves internally? Or where does that drive come from? Do I guess, break yourselves out of the own boxes that you may have?
I think it comes a little bit from our training too, but also I know I've had this conversation with her where we strive to be a new generation of big girls.
Mm-hmm.
There was a period of time where big girls weren't really thought of as more than one thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, they had a role to play and that was it. But I know me growing up, I played so many different sports. And when I turned 18, I got into mixed martial arts and I did that for almost 6 years before I ever got into wrestling. So I pride myself on being very athletic, being very excuse me, very agile and like being able to even at my age now, being able to pick things up still. So I never want my work to be limited. And I know she's the exact same way. So we have that drive because the people who trained us are very passionate and very, they instill a very strong work ethic in you from day one. But I think too, it also comes from being a part of a new generation of big girls and trying to make sure that we represent well because, there's a lot more big girls popping up now, but there's still only a limited few that are on platforms to really represent, like big platforms. I
Yeah.
mean, so because we have that platform and because we're in a great spotlight right now, it's our privilege and our job to kind of represent that new generation of big strong girls and show that hey, yes, we're strong and we can do some pretty cool things, but also watch me show you all this other cool stuff I'm capable of because there's no limitations. There's only limitations in here. As long as you believe you can do it and you have the work ethic to do it, you can do it. So I think I can speak for both of us when I say that we have a very similar mindset in that regard.
I love it. And I kind of love, especially with yourself personally, you've talked about China being a hero in the past, someone who obviously was very much of the same mentality. And then in the weirdest, but maybe my favorite transition, Daddy Ass, a guy who's reinvented himself more than once, to say the least, obviously on one hell of a run right now. How cool is it not only to have trained under a guy who you personally have said, even in your interview with Andrew Thompson, that you really connected with in training, going out there and not just being a great trainer, but still proving he's one hell of a professional wrestler.
That man is just incredible. Like I pray to God that when I start getting older, that I can maintain that kind of build and athleticism, and just, he's a phenomenon, I swear. It's crazy to think he gets bigger every year. Like, usually when people get older, they get more frail and stuff. Like, I think every year he at least puts on like 5 pounds in a good way, like in muscle. And I'm just like, how do you do it, bro? Now that man inspires me so much, and not just as a wrestler and a in fitness, but like just as a human being. He's just a great human being. There was a period of time where, I didn't have a car anymore, and I couldn't come to class. So I would text him and be like, hey, I'm so sorry, like I'm not going to be at training this week, blah blah blah. And his response wasn't like, okay, thanks for letting me know. It was, well, where do you live?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, here. And he's just like, okay, cool, I'll pick you up tomorrow. And I'm like, what? Okay.
Getting
Like,
a
that
car
man.
ride from Billy Gunn?
Yes. And then even when I started doing the independence, there was a couple times where he would be like, hey, I'm doing a local show. You want to hop in my car and come with me and run my merch table, and I'll introduce you to the promoter. And I was like, absolutely. So like, he would take me on the road with him a few times, and he would introduce me to people, and he would kind of give me like, a little bit of knowledge about it, like, hey, this is how the independents work, yada yada yada. And not even that, like, there was just some personal stuff. There was a period of time where I was going through some really hard family stuff, and he was there. Like, I call him my wrestling dad, because he very much looked out for me from day one. I always tell people that from the first day I met him, there was like this weird, I don't know if he felt it, but I felt it. There was like this weird connection. And I was like, this man is going to play a big role in my life. He's cool as hell. And sure enough, within a few months, like, he was like my role model in wrestling. Like, he had faith in me, he pushed me, and he really looked out for me during some dark times. And he is the reason I ended up in AEW. Like, he was the one who sent me the text message and say, hey, where are you at? I want them to meet you. And I was like, yeah, sure. And obviously the rest is history. Fast forward 2.5 years later, and that text message changed my life. So
Mm-hmm.
He might be big and scary and intimidating, but he's the sweetest person I've ever met, and I'm very, very grateful to him.
Were you a fan of his growing up by any chance? Like,
Oh
obviously, you
yeah.
mentioned China. Good. Good. Everybody should have been, but you got to do
My
your vetting.
Yeah, my brother and I. So my brother Lucas, I have 5 brothers. My brother Lucas was like the big, big wrestling fan. He's the one who kind of got us all into it. And we started watching around the Attitude Era. So like the Dudley Boys, DX, like all that stuff. That was what we kind of grew up on. Stone Cold Steve Austin, all of that. So Daddy Ass, I was definitely a fan of Daddy Ass, because he was just insane, and I loved it. He's just an angry, angry person.
Everybody loves the Acclaimed, but you know
Okay.
what you mentioned right off the bat there too. Like, he was the one who provided that opportunity. Obviously, Tony Khan's had nothing but great things to say to you
Yeah.
about you. Excuse me. Was it hard for you to take that chance on yourself and really say, I've got a good spot. I'm enjoying what I'm doing. There's a steady paycheck, but it's time to bet on KiLynn. Was that difficult? Was it an easy decision? What was sort of the mental process there?
It was very difficult, because I spent the last 2.5 years with them. You know what I mean? Like, even when they went on the road, I wasn't with them all the time, but I would still get opportunities with them. So it was it was one of those things where I just didn't want to get stuck being looked at a certain at look being looked at as a certain kind of wrestler. I didn't
Mhm.
want to be known as a jobber for the rest of my life. I didn't want um and when you're at a place for a certain amount of time, you can feel when there's an opportunity, when there's not. And there just wasn't
Mhm.
a spot for me on the main roster at the time, and I could feel it. And I really wanted to start dipping my toes into the part of my career where I started getting, oh, excuse me, words, where I started to get experiencing like bigger style matches. And when I say that, I mean like the 20-minute plus matches, the stipulation matches, the matches that really work the brain and make you become a smarter, more educated wrestler. I just wanted matches like that. And I wasn't 100% sure if I was going to get that there. So it was a big mental battle because I was so scared that if I did that, my name was just going to kind of fade away and nobody was going to care. They're going to be like, oh, the one girl from the pandemic. Yeah, I don't know what she's doing anymore. I was very, very scared of that. But with that said, my time with AEW really taught me how to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Uh, I don't know if aggressive is the right word, but just like to stay on it and make sure that you're finding work and getting things done because like things are always moving there.
Yeah.
You always gotta be like, hey, I have this idea, or hey, I want to do this. Like, so seeing that, being in the backstage and seeing how all that works, I really understood like you can't wait for people to come to you. You just gotta go. You gotta, hey, I want to come work for you. I want to do this. I want to do that. And so it really helped me understand how much work it takes to really get the ball rolling. So that way the bookings start coming in, that way your name starts getting some attention. So I just took that energy as best I could and I went out onto the indies with it. And so far, I think I've been doing pretty good. It's still kind of scary at times because there will be months where it's like crazy, 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 crazy busy. And then I'll have like 3 weeks where it's like, eh. And then like in those weeks, your mind's like, oh my gosh, should I be more busy? Like what's going on? Do people not care anymore? But it's literally just like that's how wrestling is. 1 minute you're busy and you're not thinking about it. You're just like, yeah, I'm on fire. And then for a couple weeks, you're just like, what am I doing with my life? Like it's a weird mental game that you have to. It's a weird mental ride that you have to go on.
Yeah. Well, and I even love it. I'm pulling from memory here a little bit too, but I remember there was the point where it was, is she signed? Is she not signed? To the point that like you were the one who reached out to Mickie James to get booked with NWA or even just as an inquiry, I guess, correct?
Yeah. So once I made that decision, once I stopped reaching out to AEW and being like, hey, can I get booked here? Can I get booked here? Um, I was getting booked on the independents, but like I hadn't heard from any other companies and I was starting to get really bummed. I was like, I know WWE, you gotta, fill things out and send it in. I was like, but NWA, I worked with them before. So dang, I really hope they reach out to me. So when I never heard anything, because I figured, like my face would stop popping up in AEW and people would get the picture, but nobody reached out to me. So I was like, all right, let me figure out what's going on. So I reached out to a couple people and I found out that people thought I was signed and that I was
Mm-hmm.
just like in development or something like that. So people weren't reaching out to me because they thought I wasn't available. So when I found that out, I was like, no, I'm available. And so I was fortunate enough to have Mickey's number from working with her at Empower. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a risk. And I texted her and I said, hey, I hope you're doing great. Like, this is what's going on. And then as soon as she found that out, she was like, oh my gosh, yeah, all of us thought you were signed. Let me see what I could do. And then within a week or so, I got an email from NWA and they were like, hey, we want you to come to these tapings. And I was like, yay. And that was like, what, 6, 7 months ago. And now we're here about to have my second match for the Burke. So, yeah, and that's what I alluded to earlier. You literally just have to grab the bull by the balls and just go. Like you can't wait for people to hand you opportunities. You just got to go and do it because that's just how it works. Like people don't know until they know. So you just have to constantly be like, hey, 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 me, 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 me.
I'm here. I'm here. I'm available. I'm ready to go at any point.
Yeah.
You mentioned Empower there very briefly, and obviously there's been a couple of statements made. Billy Corgan alluded that there maybe wasn't enough talent on the independent scene, which I'll get your thoughts on that as well, too. But he also did mention, I think it was a September 6th Power, if I remember right, that he said there was going to be another Empower soon. So maybe some thoughts on the first statement, but maybe some thoughts on a potential next Empower and who you might want to see personally in the NWA's second all-women's event.
I mean, I stated it before. I don't think it's a matter of there not being enough talent. I just think it's a matter of because sometimes your eyes are focused one place. And then
Mm-hmm.
when you realize that you have a possibility coming up, you have to shift your focus in order to find talent for that in that regards. I
Mhm.
think that's literally all it is. I think they've been focused on, the storylines that they've been building over the past year, the last couple pay-per-views and tapings, and the new people that they've brought into the NWA that they're building up. So I don't think it's a matter of not having talent out there. I think it's just a matter of, now that they know that a second one is in the works, they gotta open their eyes, shift it to a different direction, and just see what's available out there.
Mhm.
Like I have the ability where I get booked on regular promotions, I get booked on all female promotions, and when I get booked on all female promotions, I see and meet and get to work with people from all over the world. Not everybody has that opportunity.
Mhm.
Sometimes people go to shows and they only meet two or three girls at a time. So I think it's just a matter of looking at the pool of talent that's available and just seeing what's available for whenever they plan on doing that. And I really hope there is a second Empower, because the first one was really special. I think it's just a matter of finding people that have it, that can build an equally strong roster for Empower.
Mhm. Completely fair. Anybody specifically you'd want to see in there?
Um, hmm. Oh my gosh, I hate when people ask me these questions because I get so nervous and I forget names all of a sudden. I literally have one of those, like, I was terrible at taking tests. Like if you would just had a regular conversation with me, all right, I could probably remember a couple things here. But if you tell me like, hey, I need you to answer these questions so I can point or grade you on it, I'm like, uh, um, sorry, that was such a um high end for sure. Uh, let's see. I'm trying to think of people that aren't in NWA, because immediately my brain said genocide, but I'm like, no, wait, she's already in NWA. I mean, we can pull from some of the Impact talent. You've got Jordan Grace, Deanna Perazi, which, I mean, Deanna was a part of the last one. Um, I already said hi. Um, Look, there's a lot of girls in Texas. There's a lot of girls who are starting to come overseas. Um, I was about to say Kenzie Page, but Kenzie Page is already in the NWA. Um, I'm not doing too great over here. Oh, Masha. I mean, she was part of the first one as well, but I would love to see her back. Um, Ultraviolet is somebody who I have a finger got bit into or sliced, or it got detached, and she had to like wait a long time for it to heal.
Mhm.
Um, Miranda Elias, she's an incredible luchador, and I think she could do some great stuff. You got Bert Vixen. There's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of people, and the problem is sometimes if you don't see people on TV, you're not sure. Like, oh, do they have that that high level TV quality talent? Sometimes you just got to give people an opportunity and see what happens. I think there's a lot of girls out there who are busting their butts and really deserve an opportunity. It's just
Mhm.
a matter of getting that opportunity.
Well, and I was gonna say, while you're sitting there and thinking, it's a good problem to have when you've got that many potential people to pull from, right? Whether you're looking at
Yeah.
Mexico, Texas, or Japan, which ties us over nicely because just a few hours ago, it was announced that you will be taking on Mayu Iwatani. How freaking cool is that for you? I know you talked about that maybe being one of the dream matches, someone you're excited to get in the ring with. So give me your thoughts heading in, because again, you want to talk about prestigious championships. You got the SWA World Championship in your sights now too.
Yeah. So I cannot tell you how long I've been sitting on that information. I got asked about this booking like months ago. And they were promoting the show. They were promoting the show. They had announced a lot of the matches. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, is this match actually happening? Like, what's going on? And I found out they were just waiting until close to the show to announce it. So I'm sitting here, I'm like, you guys booked me, and I have this cool information in my head, and I can't share it. Like, I was like, oh, I was going nuts. So yes, I was so excited when they finally announced it last night. It's been a dream. pretty much since the beginning, since I started, one of my goals has been to go to Japan. I think that's a lot of people's goals usually because it's synonymous for being life changing. You know,
Mhm.
like everybody knows most wrestlers who either work with New Japan and Stardom or end up going to Japan, their careers changed in the greatest way. Uh,
Mhm.
so that's always definitely been a big goal of mine. So the fact that I got reached out to work with them while they're here in America, like, oh yeah. And to wrestle Mayu, like first time working with them, and it's a title match against Mayu Iwatani. I was like, come on, guys, this is incredible. So I'm very, very excited. It's I literally leave tomorrow at like noon, so I'm I can't wait. I'm a little bit nervous. It's a different challenge, and it's one that I wasn't expecting to happen quite yet. So it's definitely I've been doing a lot of studying and a lot of preparation. So I'm hoping that I just don't let anybody down, that we just show up and kill it. So I'm trying not to overthink it because I'm afraid that if I like overthink it, I'm gonna go in and just be like, as opposed to just going in and beating the crap out of each other. Excited.
Doing what you do best, being the
I think the sound
motherfucking
cut
king.
out. Oh, there we go. Yes. Well, you're using
It's
the adult version of my moniker.
this
Usually I
podcast is
keep it
rated
PG
14A.
13. Ah, I was about to say, usually I keep it PG 13 and just say mother effing. That's funny.
Don't worry, we are good to go. I am so excited for you. I am so excited for that matchup. I am so excited for November 12th. And hot damn, KiLynn, I was so excited to get the opportunity to chat with you today. It's been an absolute blast. I really, really appreciate it. Of course, if anybody wants to keep up to date with the latest and greatest coming from you, how can they do so? Where can they do so? And where can they see you wrestling in the next little bit?
I mean, I'm pretty simple. Twitter and Instagram, I'm heavily active on there. It's at KiLynn King. Um, I usually sell any gimmicks or any merch that you guys would like. I sell some stuff online at a place called fullygimmicks.com. I also sell merch at my table at shows. As we just alluded to, this Friday I'm going to be in New York for the New Japan pay-per-view to wrestle Mayu Iwatani. And then this Sunday, I will be, sorry, I had to say it like that. This Sunday, I will be in Atlanta for Battle Slam. I'm going to be going against Kamille for the first time ever. I'm very, very excited about that matchup. The following weekend, I will be making my debut at Women's Wrestling Army. Again, I will be wrestling Amanada at that show in Chicago. And then I will be back here in Florida to wrestle for Coastal Championship Wrestling on Sunday and Boca Raton Championship Wrestling on, or wait, I'm sorry, Coastal on Saturday, Boca Raton Championship Wrestling on Sunday. Can you tell I'm great at promoting?
I was just going to say, hey, it's one of the busy months. It's a good problem.
Yeah. And then the following weekend, it's right to what we're here to discuss anyways. November 12th, it's going to be the final pay-per-view of the year. Excuse me, in Louisiana. Triple threat, me, Kamille, and Chelsea Green going at each other for the Burke. Very, very honored and very, very excited about that match. Yeah, those are the next couple things coming up. So come
Get
check it
hyped,
out, guys.
friends.
Yeah, get hyped. If you can't come in person, I usually post like where you can watch the shows or when it'll be coming out. So just keep an eye out. I'm constantly trying to keep you guys updated and informed. So
Love it. Well, you and I have one thing in common. We're both big into manifesting things. So I am going to say
yeah.
thank you to the future NWA Women's Champion, KiLynn King, for joining me today. Of course, you can find all of the links to their social media, their upcoming events, everything in between in the description down below. But if you want to keep up to date with the latest and greatest from Love Wrestling, make sure you give us a follow wherever podcasts are played, audio is created, videos are shown, or awesome content is put out at Love Wrestling CA. For the future NWA, SWA, blank WA Women's Champion, KiLynn King. I've been Spencer Love. Thank you. Oh, as I knock everything over in my house. Thank you guys for joining us. It is thoroughly appreciated when you take the time to tune into our content. We hope you continue to do so. And of course, make sure that you're supporting your local independent professional wrestling. There's no better entertainment. And make sure you're supporting great individuals like KiLynn if you've got the opportunity to as well. For the motherfucking king, I've been Spencer Love, friends. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on the next one.